Hey y'all, welcome to day 5 of Kirby's training. On this day, we picked up where we left off the previous day with some ribbon wand work. This is just where I began filming as we were working on something new. This is when I started having him actually move with the ribbons on him. I just started by yielding his hindquarters with them laid over his back at first, but this would help him become more comfortable with things on him as he's moving. After a few repetitions of that, which he was really good for, I started having him lead a couple steps at a time, getting him to move forward with them on his back. He honestly wasn't too fazed by it. My next goal was going to be able to lift the ribbons and put them on him while he's still moving and him continue that motion forward. I think some desensitizing with them actually moving forward is really helpful for horses. I think it helps you make sure they're becoming really comfortable with what object you're desensitizing to, and it helps to prepare for things moving on their back, such as a rider. So at the moment I was doing this while yielding his hindquarters and having him semi-lead in a small circle because he doesn't really understand lunging cues that well yet, but in the future I will do this with him actually lunging around me and having even more forward motion. So that was just a brief reintroduction to the ribbon wand so that he could start off the day with something that's pretty familiar to him. I also spend a little time petting him on both sides, just refreshing him on what he already knows. Now, the flag took him by surprise. I don't know what he thought it was, but he definitely thought it was out to get him. And so I just held it very still and waited until he reached out to touch it, and then I took it away. So then I just repeat that a few times, waiting for him to engage his curiosity and reach out and touch the flag. I want him to start to learn that he can check out scary things and realize that new things aren't going to hurt him, and he'll start to feel better if he investigates something scary instead of his first response being to run away. He's really super afraid of the flag. This is the first thing I've tried to introduce him to that he's been properly terrified of. So I'm just waiting for him to realize that he can investigate it on his own accord. I'm not trying to put it in his face and wait until he relaxes or rather shuts down. I think a lot of the time people wait for signals that a horse is supposedly relaxed when they're actually waiting for signs of shutdown. You can see his nostrils are still flared, his ears are still alert, and his body posture is still definitely that of a scared horse, but he's starting to calm down a little bit as he realizes that he can investigate it and it's not going to come at him and hurt him. But what's important is that I'm not holding it in his space until he relaxes, or rather starts to dissociate. I'm holding it near enough to him that he can reach out and touch it, but not forcing it into his bubble, and waiting until he does so, and then taking it away. Even though he's still afraid, and you can see he was startling at a noise happening in the other pen, you can see he starts to relax. He's lowering his head partially because of the position I'm holding the flag in so he can see it better, but his body is becoming a lot more relaxed and his breathing is slower as he's slowly calming down and realizing it's not hurting him. I did take a break for a minute there and then pick the flag back up again to start over. He tries to see if he can just wander off, and I said, hey, just give me a little bit of attention, just try to focus on the flag for a second, and then you'll get your release. But you can see his eyes are starting to soften a little bit. I also have the flag rolled up a little bit to try to make it less scary for him so that he feels a bit more confident about investigating it. Here he goes to reposition himself, which I don't really mind. I just try to keep him facing my direction. And this is actually the first time I'm able to touch him with the flag. I just brushed his forehead with it. He got a little startled when it went under his nose, probably because it went in his blind spot. But the same as the ribbon wand, he started to relax the minute I started touching him with it. Once he realizes it's soft and it's not going to hurt him, he starts to relax a lot. Once again, I'm doing this in small increments and quickly releasing pressure after just a little bit of exposure to the scary object. Like I said, I really don't ascribe to the hold the scary thing in their space until they stop spooking method, because I find that most of the time those horses are labeled as relaxed when they're actually just shutting down. And so my whole thing is I want the horse to feel curious and start to build confidence with approaching things that are scared of them. They start to learn it's like a superpower for them, that they can come up and touch something scary, and they start to feel better once they realize that it's not going to hurt them. They then become confident about new scary objects rather than every new object becoming a whole new ordeal that they have to learn to get over. The horse eventually learns that new things mean an opportunity to investigate, and if you train with positive reinforcement, which I do and I'm going to start using with Kirby fairly soon, they learn that they'll get rewarded for investigating scary things. Here I was working up to putting the flag over his ears as preparation for some haltering practice. He is one of the Mustangs I've had that has been the best about his ears. He really does not care about things going right over them. I then started to unfurl the flag so he could start to see the full thing. All the confidence he built up with the flag mostly rolled up was really starting to pay off, as he didn't mind too much. A lot of these clips are pretty repetitive, and sometimes there's just more of the same in between the clips that I have to take out for the sake of getting the video to a manageable length. But this is the gist of it. This is what we do. Lots and lots of repetition goes into Mustang training, and I also give him some breaks in between. He's so good about his ears though. This was really good prep for haltering him. So then I just have him follow the flag in a few circles, and if he wants to sniff it, I'll stop and let him sniff it. This was really good for him, especially considering where he started. And here he started releasing, which was also super good progress for him. He's already made a lot of progress since the start of this session. One thing I wish I did more of in this video was more movement, more having him follow the flag, because I think that helps him conquer his fear even quicker, and you'll see that I do that in future sessions with him. What was working for him, because he was nervous about the flag coming at him, was starting where he's comfortable with it on his face, going over his ears, and then touching his body with it. That way he could start to get comfortable with the feel of the flag on him, and then eventually I could work up to reaching out and touching his body with the flag first thing.
Have you been killed by ants yet?
No, but the gnats are in my face. I don't like it. You're so funny. He relaxes when it's on his back.
An acceptable touch, though.
He doesn't like it coming in his face.
The thing about horse training is there's always more flag work you can do.
I'm going to speed this up so you can see the final result of where we got to with the flag without this video being over 20 minutes long. And this was the first time I went to pick up his foot that day. You can see what I was talking about the previous day about him learning over time and becoming really perfect for handling his feet. This is how I like to get them good about picking up their feet without drilling them for long periods on it, but getting them gradually a little bit better each day. And the right front, which he was also really good about, and now it was time to move on to picking up the back feet. So thus begins the eternal struggle of trying to get the perfect throw to get the rope around the foot where I can reach it easily. Finally, I managed a good enough throw to where I could grab it with my foot, although I generally recommend using a stick to pick it up. Once I can wiggle it up to where it's around his leg, I just do a little bit of desensitizing to that feeling so he gets used to something wrapping around his leg the same way my hand will. So once he starts to get used to that movement standing still, the same way I did with the front legs, I'm going to start having him move with the rope around his leg. and then eventually I'll introduce pressure with the rope around his pastern, so he starts to realize that pressure around the pastern means he's meant to pick up his foot, and then I can start to do that with my hand. So I'm trying not to apply any pressure on the rope. It's hard with the length of the rope I'm using. Sometimes I'll like to use a bit of a longer rope so that I can stay a little farther back and use less pressure on the leg when I'm just starting out. But he's really good about his feet. He's not too worried, and he's not the kicking type. This is where I'll start to use a little bit of pressure on his leg. As he's already lifting that leg and moving it forward, I'll start to apply a bit of pressure to move it a little bit farther forward. This helps him bridge the gap rather than applying pressure on a completely stationary leg. I'm using pressure while he's already moving his leg forward, and that helps him understand a little better. I feel the need to specify this horse is absolutely sailing through the training process. This is one of the easiest Mustangs that I've had to handle their feet. He hasn't thought about kicking. He hasn't really been super afraid of anything on his legs. I have had Mustangs that are absolutely terrified of things touching their legs, and to get them to the point where Kirby is right now, it took months for those horses. Every Mustang is different. They're all on their own timeline. Kirby happens to be moving quite fast as he has a really good brain. He's not super afraid of new things, and he picks up on new concepts really quite quickly. Not every Mustang is going to be like this, so I don't want anyone to watch these videos and think, oh, Mustang and training is easy. I can do that with no horse training experience. It does take a lot of training experience, and most Mustangs are not going to be as easy as Kirby has been for me. So he has had his own challenges. He has made me work in different ways, but overall, he has been a lot easier than other Mustangs have been for me. And this also helps because Kirby is about my 14th Mustang at this point, and I have the experience from all those previous Mustangs, so I'm able to move faster than I would have been if I had gotten Kirby as one of my first couple of Mustangs. I also don't want anyone to feel down if they're training a Mustang and wondering why their horse is moving a bit slower than Kirby or why their horse moves slower in the beginning. They're all different, they're all individuals, and some of them are on a slower timeline. So you can see here, Kirby got nervous about me touching his foot with my hand. He was maybe not quite ready for that yet, and so I went back to lifting his foot with the rope and helping him realize that that was okay. When he tells me something was too much for him, I'm willing to take a step back and help rebuild his confidence. So here I was able to lift his foot with my hand, having the rope still on, and then take the rope off so that all the pressure on his foot holding it up is from my hand. This is the farthest I'll go the first day working on their back feet because I don't want to overload them. If I don't make it to this stage, that's okay. Like I said, some horses learn slower, but it was really good for Kirby to be able to learn that. Now moving on to the right side, we followed the same process. Eventually, after the same struggle that only Mustang trainers will understand, I was able to get the rope around his leg and started to follow the same steps. This was the first little kick he did with the rope on his leg. It really wasn't a huge reaction. It was just, let me see if this helps me get the rope off. No, it didn't? Okay, I can hold my leg up. If he wants to reposition, I let him do that. He was getting a little bit distracted by the noises of the other horse working in the round pen that's right next to his pen. So I let him face whichever way he feels the most comfortable. So I gave him a minute to look. I'm not going to ask for his full attention yet when he's trying to get used to me and figuring out who I am, and there's scary things happening right next to him. Here he got a little surprised. This might have been a little too fast for him. What I possibly could have done was picked up his leg with the rope first before trying to pick it up with my hand. And so he spooked away from me a little bit here. I just reminded him what that pressure on his leg means. And then here I was able to lift his leg just slightly with my hand. But what I probably should have done was lift it with the rope and then take hold of it with my hand and take the rope off, which I will sometimes do. But he was a really good boy, and in any case, he figured it out, so that was a great first session on picking up the back feet for him. He's becoming a pretty cuddly guy. So I did a bit of work on clipping the lead rope on and off his halter and called it a session there. Thank you all so much for watching. Sorry it's been taking a minute to get the videos out, but hopefully I'll have some new Kirby videos coming up soon, along with the continuation of Odyssey's journey.